Hello, my name is Dr. Greg Pearson. I'm an adult psychiatrist in private practice. I'm a generalist psychiatrist with an interest in mood disorders and addiction. And this is my colleague.
Hello, I'm Dr. Matt McDornan. I'm also an adult psychiatrist in private practice.
Thanks for joining us. We are investigating the cognitive aspects of depression and ways in which we may engage with ourselves in managing that experience. Cognition playing a very, very important part in the experience of depression and therefore an important role in managing that experience. And in our last video we talked a little bit about a thought diary and efforts directed towards putting thoughts on page and beginning to look at them objectively and wrestle with them a little bit.
That's right. And we wanted to spend some time looking at what an early researcher and colleague of Aaron Beck recorded and observed in his patients, which were the types of thinking error. And I'm referring to David Burns, who's still with us and I think still part of the faculty at Penn Uni. And he wrote a book that most psychiatrists would have read, I think, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely. I read it years ago and used to photocopy parts out of it for years. So it's called Feeling Good, a New Mood Therapy.
Yes.
And it's been around for
a long time.
30, maybe 40 years.
And he actually talked about 9 different kinds of thinking error. I think that there might be 1 or 2 that are added or taken away over time, but we were going to start by talking about 2 of these today. That is overgeneralisation and all or nothing thinking.
Oh, well, they're 2 good ones to illustrate. And I want to point out also that normally when you are examining a thought and looking for evidence of this style of thinking, it doesn't necessarily mean there would only be 1 of these elements in there.
No.
Often there are multiple thinking errors contained within a singular thought.
Yes.
So in our last video we were talking about the experience of a friend of yours ringing up and cancelling a social engagement, and that automatically in the setting of depression one would enter into a dialogue that could be critical and diminishing of you as a person, interpreting the cancellation as evidence of a sort of a broader characterisation of the relationship and the value you may have in that relationship.
Yes.
And perhaps applying a very black and white approach to that, there is no other way to understand this other than other than in an ultimatum, perhaps.
That's right. And again, when we're talking about these 9 kind of thinking errors, some of them are quite similar. So we can talk about them as loose patterns. They're not strict rules, so to speak.
No, absolutely.
They're useful guides really for trying to understand the patterns in our own thinking. Just to list them off, they are overgeneralisation, all or nothing thinking.
Should we talk about each one of those as we do it?
Yes. Mental filtering, minimising the positive, mind reading, fortune telling, should statements, labelling and personalisation. And we're going to begin with talking about overgeneralisation.
Okay, so overgeneralisation means taking a piece of evidence and applying it incredibly broadly to one's existence or life or self. So perhaps with the cancellation or the cancellation of the social event, it would be, yes, this is typical, nothing ever goes right for me.
Yes. It's an extension, isn't it? It's a single event that's used and extrapolated out and overgeneralised, as the term says.
Applied to all aspects of things, or a significantly greater number of aspects of experience than it truly reflects.
Yes, with minimal evidence.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. We all do it from time to time. It's more common if you are depressed. The other one we wanted to talk about today was all or nothing thinking, which Greg referred to as black and white. That's another way to put that. And this is where we really only see, the extremes in a situation.
Absolutely. So, again, this always happens to me. It's black and white thinking.
That's right.
The reality may be that this occasionally happens, and when it happens, it's hurtful. But the notion that it always happens is, of course, a sort of ultimatum to oneself.
That's right. There's no grey if you're thinking like this.
Yeah. So a grey, the grey area of thinking may be, I'm disappointed that this happened, but I understand.
Yes, that's right. It's not isolated to depressive thinking either. I mean, many people who've got a history of a borderline character think in this way. In fact, it's one of the key things that's examined in DBT therapy, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The idea of a thesis, an antithesis, and then a synthesis in the middle. Finding the grey area when it comes to examining yourself and your relationships and the events around you. Really, that's a very useful approach. And the idea, again, of recording all of these things and taking them to your therapist and then taking them to what we term the inner courtroom, all written down on a thought diary, is a very useful place to start.
Yeah, and it's like studying for an exam in some ways.
Yes.
It is repetitive and it might be laborious, but it's a way of reinforcing alternatives to an otherwise ingrained process.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.